Right now, on to the point. Sacramento police investigating an assault outside Sacramento's ICE facility. Questions being raised amid ongoing protests. Plus the scenes in Minnesota today. Protesters storming a church service. And tonight, as DHS says thousands have been arrested during operations over the past 2 weeks, a closer look at one of those cases. Democratic candidate for California Governor Eric Swalwell named in a new lawsuit. Tonight, why a conservative says that he's not eligible to be governor. And later, the fog did not stop them. The local march paying tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell, and we do start with the ongoing protests over ICE, the Trump administration, and now an assault investigation that's happening right here in Sacramento. For weeks, small groups have been protesting outside the ICE facility in downtown Sacramento. Now, Sacramento police confirming there was an attack outside of the federal building over the weekend. ABC 10's Nazi Javid is live downtown with what we know so far. Nazi, what can you tell us as of tonight?
Alex, you might be able to hear the protesters behind me. They are chanting. They are still out here. And yes, Sacramento police do confirm that one protester was assaulted at this location on Saturday over the weekend. In fact, I'll step out of the way. The vehicle was also attacked, and you can see the damage here on this vehicle, the broken glass. There's even one shattered window that is now covered. Sacramento police say officers responded to reports of the attack just before 3:30 Saturday afternoon. This is here at the 500 block of N Street. Police say the suspects took off before officers arrived, and at this time police say there are no suspect details to release. The man attacked, who protests at this location regularly, says a group of counter-protesters approached them and the confrontation turned physical. Now, what he tells me is that there was a group that arrived and
they came as close to that white line as possible, and I hear smash on my side view mirror, and I try to grab whoever's bat it was, or whatever they were swinging on my car. Try to grab that, and I saw him coming out with a weapon. Yeah, y'all were already prepared with sticks and bats and batons and everything else.
And Stoffer says he was hit with bear mace, and police arrived in minutes. The victim and other protesters believe that it was a politically motivated attack. However, police say the motive is still under investigation. The good news is for that protester who was attacked, he says the community came together. They did raise funds so that he can fix his vehicle, because he travels all over the country to take part in these protests, and he lives in his vehicle, so he's going to need to get those windows fixed. But that's what's happening here. Alex, back to you.
Nazi, before we let you go, I do have one question. Has this incident made him want to stop protesting? You know, what has he really taken away from all of this?
That's a great question. I did speak with him about it. In fact, there was another gentleman from the opposite side of the aisle who approached him while I was here, and I witnessed them have a very civil conversation, and they engaged in discourse, and they agreed to disagree, and it was very civil. He says that he'll continue to have those conversations, and he will continue to be out here protesting daily until he sees change. Alex.
All right, Nazi, thank you so much. A day of action is planned across the country tomorrow against ICE and the Trump administration. Groups say protests are expected tomorrow afternoon, with planned walkouts at jobs and schools. It comes as this video is being shared tonight. Take a look at this. The White House says that the Justice Department is now investigating anti-ICE protesters who interrupted a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota, just over the weekend. It appears to show demonstrators among a group of worshipers. They shout ICE out and Renee Good. That is the woman an ICE agent shot and killed just earlier this month. This demonstration follows online claims that the church pastor works for ICE. That has not been confirmed. DHS says in the last 6 weeks that their law enforcement arrested 3,000 criminals. As protests continue in Minneapolis today, at least 4 attorneys are now telling ABC News they have been denied access to their clients at the Whipple Federal Building where detainees are being held. DHS disputes the claims, saying all detainees have opportunities to communicate with their family and their lawyers. As protest arrests continue in the city, President Donald Trump says that he does not plan to invoke the Insurrection Act for now, but we do know that 2 defense officials say that 1,500 active duty troops are on alert in case of deployment. New video tonight shows an arrest from ICE agents made at a restaurant. The incident was captured on security camera. Staff members say that the man has a valid work visa to live in the country. As Jeff Wagner explains, the community is rallying behind him.
What started as an average night for Pancho's Taqueria and Mexican Cafe turned into a traumatic memory that owner Frank Chase can't avoid.
Just, hard to go to sleep at night when you think we were able to keep him safe.
Tuesday, ICE agents waited in the parking lot before following a Latino staff member named Kevin into a storage container as he grabbed stuff for the kitchen.
We can't hear anything that happened in there, but I am sure that he was terrified.
What they could hear was the struggle between Kevin and the agents as the father of two cried out.
He was saying, help, help, help me.
Within minutes, Kevin was arrested and taken to the Whipple building in Minneapolis. By the next morning, he was on a flight to El Paso, Texas. Chase says Kevin is legally in the U.S. on a work visa.
It feels like there's just no due process. Why do we have to, send him there?
Chase's family hired a lawyer and set up a GoFundMe to cover upcoming legal fees, instantly hitting their $25,000 goal. Donations.
We've been here, at least once or twice a week ever since they've opened.
Often coming from customers eager to help the cause.
We've got, some little money set aside from something I sold, and I said, I can go without a couple of things for a minute to help out my peoples.
While management here is confident they'll get Kevin home, they know there are other workers like him with the proper paperwork who don't have the same support system, whether it be money, lawyers, or just people willing to help.
What are they going to do? And 12 hours later, there's nothing they can do. They're in El Paso.
And for ongoing coverage on immigration operations and other breaking news, you can download the ABC 10 app. It is available on your TV. New tonight, Congressman and California gubernatorial candidate Eric Swalwell is the target of a new lawsuit. A conservative filmmaker alleges that Swalwell does not live in the state. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen is here to break it all down for us tonight.
Alex, the lawsuit alleges Congressman Eric Swalwell hasn't lived in the state for years and has a full-time home in Washington, D.C. In response, Swalwell is already posting on social media that he's confident he'll beat this lawsuit.
First, you have to be a United States citizen. Second, you have to be a registered voter in the state. And third, you must be a resident for the preceding 5 years leading up to the gubernatorial election.
According to the California Constitution, these are the 3 requirements candidates must have to run for governor. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell is currently leading the gubernatorial race in his party, and he's been the target of President Trump's allegations over mortgage fraud, in which he denies.
I don't wake up to fight Donald Trump. I wake up to fight for Californians.
Now Swalwell is targeted again over his place of residence in this new lawsuit filed last week. Joel Gilbert is a conservative filmmaker who created this website to post his lawsuit and all the filings to try and prove Swalwell does not live in California full time. He claims Swalwell owns a home in Washington, D.C., hasn't had a permanent place to live in California for years, and says the home address Swalwell listed on his candidate intention form is an office building in Sacramento.
Residency doesn't require that you are in the state 365 days out of the year. Residency is primarily based on one's intent to be a resident of that state.
Gilbert is calling for Swalwell to end his gubernatorial campaign. In an exchange on X, Swalwell responded to the lawsuit by saying all congressmen from California live in both California and D.C., adding that he'll beat Gilbert in court. In response, Gilbert claimed Swalwell falsified documents without a California address and declared his D.C. home as his principal home. Gilbert believes that is enough to disqualify Swalwell from the race. Legislative analyst Chris McCaley says a judge will have the last say, but believes Swalwell has a strong case to argue.
Born and raised in Dublin, California, in the East Bay, and where he served, for example, on the city council, and obviously that is the home base of his congressional district, CD 14. I think he's going to demonstrate that he's been essentially a lifetime resident of that area.
Swalwell will not do an interview with ABC 10, but his campaign consultant tells us he's always had a residence in the Bay Area. And because of the thousands of death threats, it's legal to list a campaign office as the address for his legal filings.
I also tried reaching out to Joel Gilbert to comment on this story, but he did not respond to my request.
Coming up on To The Point, President Trump's drive to take control of Greenland, the response from European countries. Plus, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The march is happening locally, keeping his legacy alive.
And we didn't get a lot of sunshine today. We've had plenty of fog out there. Dense fog advisory in effect right now. Areas that don't have fog, though, could see the northern lights. We'll talk about those things after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. A chaotic and deadly scene at a crowded Stockton flea market over the weekend. 2 men were killed and a woman was hurt in a shooting. A business owner says more than 20 bullet holes are now in a family's jewelry store. He says the men were attempted robbers who opened fire, and his son returned fire. Investigators have not confirmed that the shooting was self-defense or that it involved a robbery, but they haven't ruled it out and say no arrests have been made. A major fire in Oakland today, forcing people out of their homes. This building in downtown Oakland housed apartments and businesses. Among the destruction was a store called Dope Era, owned by rapper Mr. Fab. He says he is now focused on helping the families who have been displaced. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. And fashion designer Valentino passed away today. He was 93 years old. He had retired in 2008 after creating a business empire and introducing a new color to the fashion world, the so-called Valentino Red. Valentino dressed the rich and famous, from Jacqueline Kennedy to Elizabeth Taylor's wedding dresses to numerous Oscar winners, including Julia Roberts. Well, if you've been driving around or even looked out your window, this is probably what you saw. A lot of dense fog. It's been in our area all weekend and today, keeping it cold outside. There have also been some pretty dangerous driving conditions. Again, make sure you stay alert on the roadways. I do want to hand things over to meteorologist Brendan Menchef, tracking some of this fog, but also tracking something else much more beautiful.
Yeah, which I think a lot of us are not going to see because we're stuck under that fog. But if you can get above the fog, you go up in the foothills a little bit. We've got a pretty decent shot of seeing the aurora tonight. And in fact, I've already seen some pictures from Paradise where the aurora is visible through cameras. Not quite to the naked eye right now, but through a camera you can see it. Over the last 24 hours, these are some of the metrics here that we use to track the aurora, and we have some benchmarks that we'd like to hit in order to have that chance of seeing it in Northern California. Over the last 24 hours, we've hit all of them. This is not what it is right now. The actual numbers are a little weaker, but one of the important ones is how disturbed the atmosphere is. 9 is as high as it goes, and that's the max that we've seen over the last 24 hours. Again, these numbers are a little lower right now, but nonetheless, we've already started to see some aurora across parts of Northern California. You got to get away from city lights. You got to go to where it's dark. The northeast is northeast part of the state. It's a great place to do that. You head up the hill. That's a great place to do that as well. Here's where that naked eye viewing is going to be best. So from that red line north, basically not in California. However, areas very far south, including into northern Mexico, parts of the Gulf Coast, Southern California, have a chance of seeing it tonight through a long exposure camera. So keep that in mind. You'll want to look low to the horizon, look north, and again, use a camera to see it. And you want to be away from city lights. The best that we would likely see here in Sacramento, in the metro area, is just kind of a faint red glow towards the horizon. But keep in mind, it is going to be very hard to see it, if not impossible, with the naked eye, so you'll need a camera. If you are headed out, though, bring a jacket. It is chilly. 45 in Sacramento, 45 in Stockton, 46 in Modesto, 51 Jackson, 54 in Nevada City, 30 in Truckee, 33 in South Lake Tahoe. And the other thing is we've got all this fog. So not only would the city lights impact your ability to see it, but also, of course, the dense fog. And it is very dense, especially up along 99 through the Sacramento Valley right now. Visibility less than a quarter of a mile. That's why we've got a dense fog advisory in effect until noon tomorrow. This camera is working. It's just in the clouds. 45 right now in Sacramento, as we would normally be looking towards downtown Sacramento. Temperatures are going to fall through the 40s, and we'll start off near 40 on Tuesday morning. 41 in Stockton, 40 in Modesto, 51 up in Nevada City, 13 in Truckee, 19 up in South Lake Tahoe. Tuesday afternoon, foggy, then hopefully some clearing. If we get that clearing, we'll be in those mid-50s. However, like today, if we don't end up seeing that clearing, we're going to stay in the 40s. This pattern does start to change as we head through the latter part of this week. High pressure finally moves out. We've got a weak little passing system coming through Thursday, Friday into the weekend. That will likely be enough to kind of break up the fog, but there's no moisture with it. So I'm not expecting any rain chances, certainly no snow chances out of this. And in fact, much of the next 10 days is pretty quiet. As we get towards the end of January, start of February, we might maybe, potentially, asterisk there, see some rain chances returning, Alex.
All right, Brendan, thank you. Right after the break, honoring Martin Luther King Jr. marches keeping his legacy alive. Plus, the Greenland response, who is mobilizing as the president's threats to take over the country continue. Well, tonight, protests overseas. People are marching in Davos, Switzerland, as the World Economic Forum brings corporations and world leaders together this week. The big headliners include President Trump, who is expected to speak on Wednesday. Governor Newsom is also expected to attend and has a talk scheduled for this Thursday. The protesters are calling for democratization of the economy, and some are showing up to show solidarity with Greenland. This week, leaders from all 27 European Union nations are set to meet in response to President Trump's escalating threats to acquire Greenland. Trump is threatening tariffs on NATO allies who get in his way, insisting that the United States needs Greenland for national security. Christiane Cordero has more from Washington for us tonight.
Today, European leaders are rallying around Greenland and Denmark's efforts to ward off the Trump administration's escalating threats. The Danish foreign minister meeting with his British counterpart today as Trump talks about levying tariffs against NATO allies who get in his way of acquiring Greenland, a Danish territory.
There are red lines which can't be crossed. This is a matter of basic principles, and we are living in 2026 where you can trade with people, but you can't trade people.
Trump warned starting February 1st, a 10% tariff will be imposed on all goods sent to the U.S. from 8 NATO nations, including Denmark, the UK, France, and Norway. The British Prime Minister calls the threat, quote, completely wrong. The Norwegian Prime Minister says President Trump seems very preoccupied with the Nobel Peace Prize, which is given by a Norwegian committee, not by the Norwegian government, adding that Trump sent him a message over the weekend reiterating his desire to take control of Greenland, writing in part, quote, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, insisting he's instead weighing the U.S.'s interests. The Trump administration has long claimed it needs Greenland for national security reasons.
The president is looking at Greenland as a strategic asset for the United States. We are not going to outsource our hemispheric security to anyone else.
NATO allies have since stepped up forces in the region in response to Trump's security concerns. Still, the administration isn't satisfied. When asked today about Europe retaliating against the administration's threats, Scott Bessent said this.
I think it would be very unwise.
That message from the administration comes as the Supreme Court weighs whether Trump is using his emergency powers appropriately in imposing tariffs. A decision is expected by this summer. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
The president's efforts to take over Greenland have been unpopular among Americans and both Democrats and Republicans in Congress, for that matter. In a recent poll, when people were asked, quote, would you support or oppose the United States trying to take Greenland by military force, 86% of registered voters say no. That includes 95% of Democrats, 94% of independents, and 68% of Republicans, according to a Quinnipiac University poll that was taken just a little bit earlier this month. And today marked Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Marches were held across the country and in our area to continue to celebrate Dr. King's legacy. You can see the crowd here in the thick fog. Oh, wow, you can barely see them. Sacramento's 44th annual March for the Dream marched through the capital city this morning, braving the fog and cold weather. People were asked to put Dr. King's ideals and values into practice by inviting someone from another race, religion, or cultural background to walk with them. The goal is to build a better understanding between people from different backgrounds.
The message is really important. His life was important. It still is important. And so it's our honor to carry on his dream.
This community coming together in a bigger cause, not just for one thing, not just for one organization, but everywhere pushing a bigger purpose.
The march started at Sacramento City College and took participants on a nearly 2-mile walk to the Safe Convention Center. The first mile of the march was optional, first optional leg that organizers say is for those in leadership positions and symbolizes the extra mile leaders will go for people depending on them. And streaming right now, if you're looking for something to watch, is a new special about Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights leader's impact on the country. Just search for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, honoring a civil rights icon. That app is free to download to your TV. All right after the break, the long-awaited changes at the Sacramento International Airport. Join us for the updates after the break. All right, before we go, long-awaited improvements are finally taking shape at the Sacramento International Airport this year. As our region grows, so is the airport. The new parking garage west of Terminal B is now expected to open in late 2026 with 5,500 parking spaces. Travelers that we spoke with today are very excited about this.
The parking, it's, don't have to do the off-site parking anymore so much. Which is more affordable, and hopefully with the added parking here, they'll make it more affordable as well.
A new pedestrian walkway that will connect Terminal B to Concourse B and is also expected to open this summer. For more on these changes, you can head over to our website right now. As always, thank you so much for watching, for always inviting us into your home. If you have something you think we should be looking into, you can always reach out to me and the team. Just email us at tothepoint@abc10.com. Don't forget, if you do want to catch up on any shows or stories that you might have missed, you can always download our free ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.